Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special live edition of the GW Basketball Insiders, live from Mohegan Sun after GW takes down South Florida 99-95 in the Hall of Fame tip-off in a statement win for their second win of the season against one of the best mid-majors in the country. David Korn and Leo Momerku are here on site. We just watched an incredible basketball game. We just talked to head coach Chris Caputo, Trey Jenkins, and Boo Boo Benjamin. Liam, I'm going to hand it off to you. Just like instant reactions to this win.
I mean, my instant reaction is that this is a hell of a win for GW, and that South Florida team's really good, and I think could easily make the NCAA tournament. I was really, really impressed with GW's ability to close it out. They kind of weathered the storm. USF went on a big run to, it was like an 11-0 run midway through the second half to make it close. And GW was able to hit their free throws and do what they needed to do to win. So I was really impressed. And yeah, I mean, where do we want to start? What do we want to talk about first?
I mean, I think you sort of brought it up, like the end of game situation. I think that's my biggest takeaway, right? GW teams of years past have really struggled in these late game situations, closing out wins and sort of getting the job done there. And this team, they didn't make all their free throws, but they made enough free throws down the stretch. Trey Jenkins hit those huge clutch shots to sort of keep a safe-ish distance away from USF. They made their inbounds. They effectively and correctly fouled up three. This is I'm just so impressed with them being able to really, again, execute in just the second game of the year. This is a new group together. Yes, these guys all have a lot of like college basketball experience for the most part, but again, it's really tough to get those down. And so I think there's a lot of credit to the individuals on the floor who did that, and to Chris Caputo and his staff for putting his guys in a position to succeed. They have a lot of in the way college basketball works right now. You have a lot of time, over the summer and like when practices officially start in the fall and when people get back on campus before you get real games. Something you hear a lot throughout the sport is sort of how a lot of these teams are almost like tired of just playing against each other so many times. But, a game like this really shows how important those practices can be. And I'm just really impressed with what I saw today.
I mean, the other thing is this is now the second game in a row that Rafael Castro has had foul trouble. Fouled out today. Did he foul out on Monday?
He played 11 minutes, so I don't think it really matters either way. The fouls put him in a position to not be a factor.
Yeah. So he's had a little bit of a slow start to the year, but GW has still been able to. It's really today is the impressive win. Maine's great, but actually Maine's not really great, but that's not the point.
I think they're a solid team, but we don't need to talk about Maine today. But.
Yeah, I'm with you. The other thing that we should talk about is the absence of Garrett Johnson for the second straight game. Got knee tendonitis. It's anyone's guess whether he plays on Tuesday. Chris Caputo said he was probably going to play today. He didn't even make the trip. So we'll see. It's frustrating to have, I thought he was going to play a game or two first before we were having the injury conversation with him. But once again, they looked like they just beat the second hardest team on their non-conference schedule without Garrett Johnson. So that tells me a lot about the caliber of this team.
Yeah, and before we get too into the Garrett Johnson news, Liam, we talked about this offline, but we are both very worried. And, while the front-facing message from the program is that this is not serious and that this is sort of regular, all indications going into the year were that he would be ready to go. He played against Georgetown, and something has happened. And so, regardless, either way, this is definitely a situation to monitor going forward, Garrett Johnson's health. But, yeah, you brought up the depth, and I'd like to talk about that for a minute because, this is Bevins was also hurt today. Caputo revealed that in the press conference. He had a back issue flare-up. So they were without two members of their rotation, right? And they still had more depth than South Florida and were able to outrun them in what ended up being a real track meet of a game. 99-95 is a high scoring college basketball game. And, Caputo was using a lot of subs. That helped, especially when the refs were maybe a little quick on the whistle, especially in the second half. Uh, you know,
Yeah, can we
uh,
talk about the
Capito
referees?
had, yeah, Capito had a really funny remark in the press conference. Press conference was just me and Liam, by the way, so it was a nice combo.
It's
Capito
fun.
liked that I was wearing the James Bishop socks, known by GW fans as the Bishocks. Anyway, but I sort of indirectly asked about the refs by asking a question about his thoughts on Castro's foul trouble, and Capito sort of smiled and said, "Oh, in the Atlantic 10, the referees let you block shots." So, um, I wouldn't be too worried about Castro's fouling, but again, my biggest takeaway is that I think going into the year, and I still think this is probably the case, your best players are Rafael Castro and Garrett Johnson for this GW team, right? And you won this game without Johnson at all and without Castro down the stretch against a really good South Florida team. You know, the depth is incredible. I was talking to some of the other media members here who maybe don't cover GW but cover more of the sport nationally, and they were in agreement talking about Luke Hunger as probably the best backup center in for any mid major. Like
Well,
like he is
I
such a
mean, you said that, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, you're probably right." So I guess that's agreement.
yeah.
But
Okay, well, way to throw me under the bus there, but no, but I think no, but I think it's true. Like he came over from Northwestern, started games at Northwestern, and in the first two games of the year, I think he's been one of the most important players. With Castro being in foul trouble, he's really held the line. He makes tough
yeah,
baskets, can defend, rebound. He is everything you want, and just having a guy like that. Again, Trey Dinkins was the best offensive player today, making some really like heroic threes, executing again down the stretch, collecting these inbounds, breaking presses. He looks great. And another player I want to mention right now is Trey Autry. He just had such a steady game. 16.7 rebounds, getting it done on both ends of the floor. Liam, I know we were talking about this. Um, it was on my drive down to Mohegan today. I was listening to the Three Bid League Pod's interview with Dr. John Giannini, and Dr. John made sure to shout out Trey Autry and really talk about how he does the little things right. And I just think that that's so true. He's always in the right position, making extra passes, taking. I haven't seen him take a bad shot this year. Like he's just such an asset to this team, and played heavy minutes today, played 37 minutes, and I'm just really impressed with him, and I continue to be, and he is you know, I think like to this GW team.
yeah. I mean, he's so underrated. I think he's. I mean, I love watching him play. He's so much fun, and he like one of my favorite things about him is he's clearly having so much fun when he's playing basketball. Like he's out there pumping up the crowd, and like you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a foul called, and he like the ball falls to him. He shoots a 3-pointer, it goes in, and he turns to the crowd and he's like he's just having a great time. Like
Yeah.
he loves it, which helps that he's a great basketball player. But I just love how much he loves basketball. And he was great today. Um, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
One thing I want to talk about a bit is the turnovers. I mean, you're going to turn the
Oh
ball
yeah,
over when you have this many offensive possessions, but you know, 21 turnovers. It's hard to nitpicky of me, but like I I think this is concerning. Let's look at some of the worst defenders, I guess. Jean Gurry, you know, driving into under the basket without really sort of any plan, if that makes sense. A lot of errant passing. And I think if this team wants to reach its full potential, I think that's something that needs to be cleaned up. And I think it will, again, once this team gets more used to playing with each other, once they sort of, again, I think maybe the rotations sort of fill out a little more and are a little more set. But what's your take on the high turnover rate?
um, I'm with you that it's something that, especially in a game like this where there were so many possessions, um, it's going to happen. But it's really the silly
Mhm.
turnovers, and they had it was I don't know. I was really frustrated by the ones at the beginning of the game when they have like they're like traveling or they step out of bounds. It's like stuff like that. Those are the turnovers you gotta cut out. Yeah, because if it's a turnover where you're trying to jam the ball in a tight space and it's because you're playing quick, whatever, that's fine. But if they can cut down on these, silly sort of needless turnovers, then I think they'll be in great shape. And honestly, the turnovers was something coming into the year that I was a little concerned about. I figured it would be probably better because you have Trey Dinkins and Aranguren handling the ball more than Christian Jones was last year. But Aranguren had what, like 7 turnovers, something like that.
Oh yeah, he did have 7 turnovers. But he also had a team high +9. So
Yeah,
take that with a grain of
no,
salt.
yeah,
Something, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, sort of on this note, talking about like the ball handling turnovers. Christian Jones started the game as a point guard, only ended up playing 17 minutes, had 8 points, and had the second lowest plus minus on the team, -4. Tyron Marshall at a -6. Um, do you think Christian Jones is? He definitely was not who they were turning to down the stretch. I mean, he was in a bit when they were sort of going like sub in, sub out, free throws, defense, whatever. But I think that, especially with the way Jenkins unarmed and played off the bench today, uh, I think that Jones is in real trouble of not just losing his spot in the starting lineup, but maybe being, slowly having his role phased down as a whole. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's also like that's one of the luxuries of having so much depth is, you
Mhm.
know, Christian Jones can have a kind of a rough start. Damn, who's 3 for 11 today? Yeah, he can have like a rough game or a rough
Mhm.
start to the year or whatever. And like it's kind of okay because you have a guy like Trey Dinkins who's going to go out there and you know shoot 4 for 7 from three, um, and be their go-to free throw guy down the stretch. Um,
Mhm.
I still think I don't think Christian Jones is going to be minimized to a small role yet. But you know, the other guards I think have probably been better. Although Dinkins was not very good on against Maine, but it's a game that matters. He played very
Yeah,
well.
but something about having this type of depth, right? I mean, it breeds competition. Like,
Yeah,
you are going to be trying, you're going to be playing your ass off in practice to keep your spot because you know it's not safe. And I'm not trying to make it I'm not saying that, but this is, I think, depending on the type of guys you got in there, a situation that could really bring out the best in a lot of players. We have we love it when you a good friend of the show, Matt Brooks, has chimed in on Twitter. I will not call it another name. He says, "Would be nice to have the greatest shooter in the history of college basketball back." That's a little quip at Chris Chapito's, reliance on the Garrett Johnson's absence when answering questions about some struggle GW may be having over the last year as a running joke amongst the fans of the program. Um, Liam, what do you think this team's ceiling is if you plug in a healthy and effective Garrett Johnson?
I mean, I think they can make the NCAA tournament if they have a healthy and effective Garrett Johnson. But having a healthy and effective Garrett Johnson is simply not something I'm relying on right now.
I
Like at
agree.
some point, like maybe he'll come back. I think we have to operate under the assumption that he's not who he was, his freshman year. Like it's just not
Mhm.
until I see evidence that he's healthy and he's doing all of the things that we know that he can do. I'm going to be operating under the assumption that you know he's not himself. But I really do hope he comes back soon. I mean, the other thing is like on a personal level, like this fucking guy cannot catch a break. It is ridiculous. Like it's absurd. He gets fucking cancer in his hip. He tears his ACL on the first day of practice, of summer practice last year, and then he's finally ready to start kind of regular season, and he gets knee tendonitis. It's
Yeah.
it's I feel really bad for him. But I mean, I know that
Not to
he's
just to
yeah,
clarify, I want to make sure we're right. It was a non-cancerous tumor in his left hip was the
yeah,
problem, and there have been a variety of sort of therapies and whatever that he's tried to use to minimize it. He's done a lot of chemo, done some other stuff. But this is like a thing that's going to linger, and having to deal with that and deal with, the fallout of a torn ACL, like this is a lot on this guy. And I just think GW has handled this absolutely correctly, erring on the side of caution, and even going
Yeah,
back to the offseason, building a team that was not reliant on him, right? Like I think that could have been something they do, right? Where, they sort of go in, penciling him in, and, maybe they don't get both Rudy Benjamin and Tyron Marshall in the transfer portal. Being like, oh, we have enough wing depth already. Let's focus this money somewhere else. Let's focus on, whatever. But they really wanted to make sure their bases were covered into that. And, Benjamin and Marshall, I was really impressed with, right? I know Marshall didn't like heavy minutes, but he had gotten into a little bit of foul trouble in the first half. But when he was in, you know, when you have a guy like Ruben Benjamin and Tyron Marshall, I don't know if there's a more athletic and versatile 3-4 duo that you'll find at this level. Like just having two guys like that who can switch, pretty much guard like 1 through 5, really. I mean, I think you'll get some point guards and some centers that would give them a lot of trouble, but for the most part, they can guard everyone on the floor in most games that GW is going to be playing in. Um, it's again like I'm just going back to this. I'm just hammering it. This team is deep, and as deep of a team as you'll see at this level. And they've been using that depth really well. They've had to use it with Castro going to foul trouble, Johnson not being healthy to start the year, and it's worked. Like you have to give this program and this coaching staff so much credit for building this roster this way. And again, this is a game, this South Florida game. I just tweeted this out. It's really, with the way college basketball scheduling is now, you have to sort of always be thinking about an at-large bid. And GW is a team with enough talent where that should be in everyone's mind when discussing this team. They have the talent to compete for an at-large bid. And if you wanted to get that at-large bid to the NCAA tournament, this win right here on a neutral floor against a team like UCF, you know, this is going to be a quad two. I think there's a world in which it's a quad one, right, Liam? Like
yeah.
this is. I mean, things would need to go really right for USF the rest of the way for them to get like a top 50. I think is what it needs to be for it to be a quad one on a neutral site. But
Yeah,
um,
I don't think they'll
this
be
is
a
a
quad one, but it's possible, I guess.
yeah. Again, like there's a world in which they pretty much like run the table the rest of their non-con and come in first in the American. Yeah, but again, regardless of whether it's a quad one or high quad, low quad one, high quad two, whatever, this is a game that the committee would be looking at. This is a resume boosting win, especially if South Florida ends up being like an NCAA tournament team, which again, I don't love the American this year. They definitely could be. Like, this is the type of game you need to win. They came in and won it. And you have to give this team props for that. And I know there have been some people online complaining about the schedule and saying that with the amount of talent that GW's had that they should have been able to schedule better. But but if you listen to our last episode where we spoke to Chris Capito, we asked him about this, and he took about 10 minutes breaking down what the scheduling process was like for him this year, how difficult it was. Even just getting this game scheduled, right? He had to get on the phone with the South Florida head coach. Capito had to work a connection he had from college with like the wife of like the Hall of Fame like liaison for this or something. Like this was not an easy game to make happen, but he put in the effort to make it happen because he knew this team was good enough where they needed these types of opportunities. So I think anyone who's complaining about the schedule needs to really take a like needs to sort of have a reality check and understand what the state of college basketball is right now and acknowledge that, a team is going to have maybe one, two, three at most opportunities in the non-conference if you're in a position like GW to really get a resume boosting win. And I think GW has, I would say, not counting Florida. I mean, obviously, if they beat Florida, that would be huge for them. But I would say like South Florida and McNeese are probably their two biggest opportunities. Right? They took care of business for the first one, and that's like again, you play the schedule that you are sort of like that you can get, and they are. And so I think anyone who's criticizing it really needs to sort of, like if you are going out of your way to criticize a team like GW for a non-conference, you need to take the time to sort of learn about what actually goes into this and realize that it's just not possible to do better than what they did.
Um, yeah, no, it's very, very hard to schedule. I think two things can be true. It's borderline impossible to schedule for a school like GW, for a multitude of reasons that
Mhm.
it really is a great answer. If you haven't seen it, you should go back and watch it's 14 minutes, 24 minutes in our most recent episode
Yeah.
with Chris Caputo. Two things can be true. It's basically impossible to schedule, and the schedule is not good enough. The schedule is not good enough to get an at-large bid, like full stop. And like it needs to be good enough. So I don't know. You got to I don't know how you square those two things, but like the people who are saying that the schedule is and it's better than it has been in years past, but it also was awful in years past. But the people who are saying it's not good enough are correct. Like the schedule is playing South Florida and Florida, and like probably McNeese will be pretty good. Like that's not enough to get in that large.
Things need to go right for McNeese to be a quad 2.
Right.
So
Now, I mean, maybe like if you win all those games, especially if you win, I mean, if they beat Florida, which they probably won't, but if they beat Florida, then
we are not saying we expect GW to beat Florida. We just want to make that clear. We're just discussing a world in which that happens.
Right. No, but like, okay, so we expect them to lose to Florida. All right, so they finished the non-conference 12-1 or whatever. I mean, if they go and win, I don't even know how many games in the A10 they would have to win, but if they're up there with like 14, 15 wins, like if they look real good, then
Liam,
maybe
I'm
they'll
just going to stop you here. I'm going to stop you here. We're 2 games into the season. Their second game, which was just now against South Florida, was a key benchmark of their schedule, something people circled going in. They took care of business. They are on track.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, they looked good. I was really impressed. The game against Maine, obviously with 67-47, low scoring, sort of had to grind it out a little bit. They pulled away towards the end. And then they come out and they scored 99 points against South Florida. Like that tells me a lot about how this team, can go and kind of grind out a win like that. Maine tried to slow them down, get back on defense. South Florida did not. And we knew that coming in, that they were going to try and run and stretch them out. So I was impressed that they were able to sort of, in a much different game, win the game, basically. So.
All right. Well, let's start to wrap this conversation up. This was a great win. We've said this. Again, I'm just so impressed with, Caputo pushing the right buttons with the coaching staff, with like the rotations, subbing guys in. Liam, give me one more takeaway you have from this. I have one more. You go first. I'll give one more, then we wrap. If you also, anyone listening on Twitter, if you want to give a comment, we would be happy to answer any questions you have or react to anything that you guys have to say before we head out. But Liam, give me one more takeaway from this. I'll hit you with one more, and then we will be out of here. So go.
I'll go with the 3-point shooting. It was actually better than it was against Maine, but I still wasn't I'm still not fully convinced. I think this is a better 3-point shooting team, but I'm afraid that they're going to have a game or two where they just can't hit a shot, and it's going to be a problem. I mean, for what's worth, South Florida was dog shit. They missed so many open threes. They were terrible from 3. Like what their guy Pinion, who was actually a very good player. He was 1 for
shout out
13.
Joseph Pinion. Yeah. That's as bad of a shooting performance as you'll see. 1 of 13.
Right.
I mean, shout out for him, I guess, for continuing to let it go. With that performance from him.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a little. You cut out a little bit there, but I'm with you. So I'm watching the 3-point shooting. That's something I'm still monitoring. But I guess if they think they're getting good looks and all that fun stuff, then whatever. I mean, they won the game, so it's fine with me.
I'm just going to talk about this again, but I think my biggest takeaway from this is still the late game execution. Right, like Caputo nailed it, fouling up 3. They got these inbounds in. I think this was a really good opportunity for GW to practice, handling traps and full court presses. And I think for the most part, Trey Dinkins, Trey Autry, Christian Jones a bit, John Arnduran, all of them at different points, handled this. And I think a game like this early in the season is really, really crucial. when you're sort of throwing these different looks to sort of get ready because you know they're going to face those at other points in the year, especially if they are sort of looking like in one of the top, especially if this is a team that teams are worried about going in, right? They're going to try and throw things at them to throw them off. And the fact that they were able to handle all of that, execute it's, I think the preseason hype has been warranted. And I think early on from what we've seen really you know, answered the call.
Yeah.
And this is a really fun time to be a GW fan. GW fans haven't had a lot to be optimistic about, going really like 10 years. This is a program that was pretty dead in the water. And Chris Caputo has come in. There's been influx of past, and he's really dragged GW men's basketball, back from the grave. And there's a world in which this team just keeps sinking, right? I'm sure anyone listening to this is familiar with, the Mike Lonergan, Patrick Nero situation. The next real hire after that didn't exactly fix things. And, you know, Berger was in a bad spot, for decisions. Like, they're in a good place right now. They're doing the right things and they're winning. And this team has a chance to like make the NCAA tournament, and that would just be so thrilling. And I'm just feeling, you know, this was a really big win. Not just because they won, but the way they won it, the circumstances with, winning without Castro for a lot of the game, without Garrett Johnson, tied like they had an 8-man rotation. This is supposed to be a team that was relying on itself. They did, but they didn't have as much as they wanted. Just an unbelievable win at Mohegan Sun in the Hall of Fame tip-off in a game that this team needed to win to seriously be considered one of the, premier mid-majors, NCAA tournament hopeful, all of that. They got the job done.
Yeah. I mean, there were the other thing is there were people coming into this game, nationally that were paying attention. There were people watching this. They were kind of had their eye on it. It's all right, well, this is going to be an early season barometer for both GW and South Florida.
This was on national TV. John Fanta was on the call. No, it is. It's, Providence, Virginia Tech. Those are too much for the the exact same broadcast team, the exact same network. This is this. If you're not into college football, right? You're scrolling around to find a game to watch for college basketball. You'd be watching this one.
Yeah, well, probably you'd be watching Alabama St. John, but that's not the point. Okay.
That's okay. Fair.
No, I'm just messing with you. I will negotiate with you. I will accept Peacock as national television as long as we don't call CBS Sports Network national television.
I think Peacock is a significantly bigger platform than CBS Sports. I think at this point, any serious sports fan has Peacock. A lot of good soccer, a lot of good college sports.
They have good TV shows too. Is the other thing it's a good streaming service.
I didn't hate the paper.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. That would make me angry. Just to be quite frank with you, that would be an affront to the art that is journalism. Wait, can we talk about Mohegan Sun a little bit?
Yeah, this is how we're gonna wrap. I don't know if that's a nice branded water bottle you got there.
I know. There's a bunch of them in the fridge. I got an empty bag right here. Stuffing it.
So I don't know if anyone listening has been to Mohegan Sun, right? But the game that was played here was at Mohegan Sun Arena, home of the Connecticut Sun. Which was owned by the Mohegan Tribe, owned by the Mohegan Casino, all that. The casino, the arena is not like a separate building from the casino. You have to walk through the casino to get to the arena. It is on the casino floor. You exit the arena and there are slot machines, blackjack tables, all of that, flashing lights when you leave. This is crazy. This isn't big. This isn't this is a wild place to have a serious basketball arena to house a professional team. I guess maybe shame on me for not realizing exactly what it was, but I was very surprised when I got here and it was following the signs of the arena, and I was oh my god, it is just in the middle of the casino.
It's very strange. It's very, very strange. That's my main takeaway. I don't like it. I just don't like it. Like I'm just not a fan at all. Mostly because like you got to walk through this damn casino to get to the arena. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's signs and there's people walking into you, and I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? So I mean it's funny though. I'm
I mean,
thankful
this is
for
a
it.
really professionally done event. You know,
Yeah, that's true.
national spotlight in a professional arena. You know, big crowd. You know, by the end of the game, I think there was a legit crowd. And it was kind of fun to see some of the Providence fans and the Providence band start like rooting for GW because they
Yeah,
still have like a lot of affection for Rafael Castro, who spent the first 2 years of his
yeah.
collegiate career at Providence. Yes, Liam, tell the
So
story. This is how we'll
as
wrap.
as Castro's walking off the floor, the Providence band all starts chanting, slip, 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 slip. And he's like, flashes him a little hard hands. So I don't know. It's nice to see you have all these like people that transfer, and I don't know, maybe they don't always leave on the best terms and stuff like that. But it's nice to see kind of I think Providence realized that like he needed to go somewhere else. He succeeded somewhere else, and they still support him. So look at the Providence fans being normal for the only time ever. Providence fans. Um, so okay, all right. Well, let's wrap it up.
Liam,
Got
you got
30
to
more
be
minutes here.
careful about what you say. We don't to come after us. I don't know if we could
The
survive that. Providence College
we
Burn
don't want to
Community,
wait. Say that we don't want the burners to come after us.
the PCBC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I respect the hell out of them. They're
Mhm.
lunatics. These people are fucking deranged, and I think they lean into that. Like I think they like that. So I'm not telling anyone, not telling anyone anything they don't know. So
Do you think?
anyway,
How do you think? If there were to be a Providence burner, attack on GW, right? Do you think that GW Revs Bolivia and like GW Babylon, all of that, do you think they'd be up for the fight, or do you think they would just be overwhelmed by the sheer numbers?
it's
Um,
it's tough. The sheer numbers, it's going to be very difficult to overcome. But I think they would put up a fight. I mean, they're certainly not gonna back down.
this would be Ryan Palaio's Dirk Nowitzki moment. He would need
Oh
to
my
put the
god,
team
yeah,
on his back.
absolutely.
All
All right,
right,
well,
and with that note, on that note, Liam, you take us out.
yeah. All right. Thank you guys for listening. This was a lot of fun coming to this today. I'm glad GW won. And yeah, this will be posted. If you're watching this live, this is going to be posted. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on Twitter. I'm going to post it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Yep, talk to you soon.